Hi everyone, my name is Kim. I'm the founder and creator of Expat Mama, or you can say in Spanish, Mama. Through these interviews that are both the podcast and the new YouTube channel, we educate people about what it's like to be an expat, which is someone who's left their native country to live in another, and we tell their stories. Today, my guest is Jennifer Jennings, who's originally from Alberta, Canada. She currently lives in La Paz, Mexico, and I'm so excited to interview her. Welcome, Jennifer. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It really is. So why don't we just start with where you grew up, where you're from, and hear a little bit about that.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so I'm originally from Alberta. I grew up mostly in Edmonton, which is it is the capital of Alberta. It's a very northern climate compared to Mexico. And yeah, that's where I grew up. All my family's there. And then I moved to Calgary a couple of years ago with my husband. We wanted to be closer to his sister. So my husband is originally from Prince Edward Island, which is the east coast of Canada. And he had a sister living in the Calgary area. So we moved down there to be closer to her and her family. She has younger kids. I mean, they're not young anymore, but just wanted to be a part of their lives. And yeah, and then we made the move to Mexico last year. So we have officially been here for over a year now.
Which you're going to be able to give a lot of comparison kind of things, which is really interesting. We have a lot of people that are considering moving to Mexico. But we have on my channel, we have a lot of different perspectives from other countries. It's not just the focus on Mexico. We've had people from Argentina, Brazil, I mean, from all over the world. So why La Paz? What's the story about how you guys came to live there?
Yeah, so I mean, we used to so when my husband and I first started dating, so this was long before we were married, one of my tests that I had with my husband when we first started dating. So one of the first things we did is went camping. I wanted to go camping. Like camping is something that's really important to us. I mean, we live in an RV, but camping has been a part of our entire relationship. So we went camping and I wanted to see how that went. And I mean, that's a whole set of problem solving and communication and whatever else. But I think we've been dating like only a couple of months. I was like, listen, like Christmas is coming up, like the winter's coming, like I want to go to Mexico. Do you want to come with me? And he was like, yeah, of course. Oh, yeah. So we booked an all-inclusive in San Jose del Cabo. And we went and it was amazing. And then we kept coming back. We kept going to San Jose del Cabo. We rented a car one time and explored like Cabo San Lucas and started to like branch out. I think, and I've said this before to other people, it's a comfort thing when you come to Mexico. Like when I first came to Mexico, I think I went to like Mayan Riviera with my family, like as a teenager, and we didn't leave the resort like at all. But as my trips with my husband, we rented a car and then we would explore more. And then the next time we came down after, I think we did like 3 or 4 trips to the all-inclusive, we rented an Airbnb, so we started doing stuff like that. So I think it was January 2019. So this was right before COVID hit. We came down to Mexico, to Baja Sur, and we were on a mission to find somewhere that we were going to move to. That was the plan. The long-term plan was we were moving here, but we just needed to find the city. So we were super familiar with San Jose del Cabo. That's where we thought we were going to be moving. We really liked the vibe there. I mean, all of your conveniences are there. We were comfortable with the area. We knew that Cabo San Lucas was not the place for us because we had spent an afternoon there and it was too busy. And it was just, if anybody's been to Cabo, they know. And yeah, so we ended up staying at an Airbnb in La Paz, and that was kind of like our home base while we explored the rest of Baja. And we just fell in love with La Paz. Like it's an energy, I think, is how I would describe it. Like we arrived here, and our souls just like, this is it. And yeah, then we kind of just never left.
I think when you find your place that you want to, relocate to, it's like the place that feels like home.
Exactly. That's
And that's
exactly
what it
what it
felt
felt
like to
like.
you, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Okay. What is it about La Paz that was different from Cabo, for example, that you're like, because you were familiar with it, but maybe you were like, I feel so comfortable. I want some other, what were the missing components, I guess, that you said that like, this is the place we want to be?
Yeah. So I mean, Cabo, like San Jose is great. I mean, and it's super great, I think, for people who haven't been to Mexico and kind of want to wet their toes on like the Mexican culture and, kind of get more familiar with it. But what we were looking for is I didn't want to move to Mexico and just, live in Cabo and not actually experience Mexico.
There you
I mean,
go.
that was kind of the whole point of moving to a different country is to get away from just your regular life. So, I mean, La Paz it's definitely less touristy. We don't have any beach resorts. The hotels are smaller. People don't just come. There's no all inclusives here. So the tourists are less. And I think we get a lot of like Mexican tourists, which is great. So yeah, La Paz is just, we came here, we could actually experience the culture. We could actually immerse ourselves in like Spanish speaking people. But we still had those conveniences that we really liked. Like, I mean, we can go to Home Depot, we can go to Walmart, like there's kind of like a gringo corner where all of your like Sam's Club, all of those things that are just nice to have are here. But you can also go the other route and go, shop at the local stores and, really immerse yourself in the culture. So that was the deciding thing for La Paz over somewhere like San Jose del Cabo.
And that makes me so happy to hear because a lot of people just think of Mexico as being this big beach,
Yeah.
Of course, Cancun is #1 on the list, right? We're just going to go to the resort. We're going to have a great time, or maybe Puerto Vallarta, Mazatlan, maybe some of those, internationally renowned places. But when you actually go to live there, I think most expats do not want to live in a place like that. The ones that I know that want to experience the real Mexico at the same time. And that's what that was the difference, right?
Yeah.
So it is a real Mexico, but also touristy, but more national tourism than international, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, as we, get more comfortable with the area, we've done a lot of exploring of other parts in Baja Sur, and we have other plans to travel, into mainland Mexico and stuff like that. But it's just a kind of nice starting point, I think. But I mean, it's also it's really beautiful. We're right on the water.
Nice.
The food is really great. It's inexpensive. The people are so nice, like the most amazing people. Yeah, I mean, just La Paz is #1 for me.
#1. Okay, so let's talk about that. What kind of climate? Let's talk about that first. What kind of place is it as far as temperature goes? And
okay, yeah. So we arrived in October. So when we, oh my God, I remember we had been driving for 3 days across Baja, and we had been driving for 9 days to get down here, and with our trailer, like so with our RV, yeah. And we pull up. I think it was middle of October. We pull up to our spot. It's like 40 degrees Celsius. So whatever that is, it's hot. Like it's like screaming towards hundreds. And we're here, but we gotta like set up the trailer. And it was just so uncomfortable. But so that was October. Then that's kind of like the tail end of like the hot season or like the summer. And then you go into like the winter, and it's beautiful. I mean, coming from Canada, it's beautiful. Like anybody we've had down here, they're out in the pool, they're tanning. Like the wintertime is beautiful. My favorite month is April. I thought that the weather was absolutely perfect for the whole month of April. It was super warm during the day, a little bit cooler at night, so you can actually like get a little bit of relief. Everybody told us that the summer, they're like, oh, the summer, the write-off, just leave, like everybody leaves, because it's so hot and so humid, right? And like the winter's not humid, so we're like, sure, it'll be fine. It was humid. It was very humid. Just every day you feel like you go outside and you're just everything's wet. So that was shocking. It was uncomfortable. It wasn't as bad though. Like it honestly wasn't as bad as people made it sound. Like they made it sound like it was going to be unbearable. You kind of just had to like accept that when you went outside, like you were just going to be moist and like sweaty, and that's kind of it. Everybody is.
Yeah, it's just normal life.
Yeah, it's just as hot. So yeah, I guess like mid-June, maybe July until October is hot, uncomfortable, humid. But the rest of the year is pretty beautiful, like pretty great weather.
Now you mentioned that there is a desert area. So how could that be? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so La Paz is right in like it's a desert, so there's very little precipitation. I think last year they had no rain. This year we had a couple of days of rain, which was amazing. So we had rain when the hurricane came through, and that was in like August, end of August. We had a hurricane and we got some rain, and then for a couple, I think it rained like 3 times in September. And it's beautiful because everything greens up, like turns green, right? So when we arrived in October, like everything is just brown and like dead, but all of these plants and trees and shrubs are just waiting, and then they get any precipitation and they just turn.
They just suck it up.
They just turn green and they flower, and it's beautiful. But being in the desert, I mean, so the daytime temperatures are quite high, and then at nighttime we cool down quite a bit. So like I was saying before, at night in like the middle or like the dead of winter, like January, February, we get down to like 5 Celsius or like 41, which is quite nippy, I guess, like when you're coming from almost 100 degrees a day.
But you told me just before we started recording that your mom was out there swimming in the middle of winter, had the whole water to herself. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So I mean, I have always been a cold person. So when I lived in Calgary, like in Canada, I was always cold. My house was always warm. My husband is always beside himself. He's like, why is it so hot in here? I'm like, this is nice. Always had slippers and blankets and whatever. So I was like, oh, we're gonna move to Mexico. Like I'm going to be comfortable. I'm gonna be warm all the time. And that didn't happen. As soon as we got here, like in October, it was hot, and then all of a sudden, November, December, I like climatized, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of like cold. So now I know that my ideal temperature is like 30 degrees Celsius, but whatever. So in the wintertime, my family came down, my mom came down, and she's obviously coming from Canada, where, you know, the regular temperatures in the winter sometimes get down to like -40. So she's coming down from the dead of winter in Alberta, and she gets down here, and we take her to the beaches, of course, because she hasn't been. You know, we take her all around, and she's out swimming in the ocean. And she's like, "Are you coming in?" And I'm like, "No." I'm like, "It's winter and the water is freezing." She's like, "Oh, it's beautiful." I'm like, "Oh, absolutely not." And of course, nobody else is in the water because like the locals don't go in the water in the winter. It's just tourists and my mother, who is a tourist. But yeah, you climatize super quickly. I found anyways, like I climatized super quickly to it. But
acclimatize, when we lived, I told you, when we lived in Merida, it was always super hot. It would get up to like 50 degrees Celsius. That's just way too hot for anyone in this world. But when it got down to, well, okay, now I'm switching to Fahrenheit. When it got down to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, we had to buy blankets there. And I'm like, what's going on here? We're freezing our buddies off in this place. And I'm like, I'm from Utah. I should be okay with this. But it is all what you're accustomed to or what you have acclimatized to. Okay, so let's change gears here and stop talking about the weather. We've given that an overkill. So your lifestyle, like, and La Paz has camels there, right? That's
not
what
that
I
I
see.
have seen. I would like
Okay.
to see that.
It might
I
be a
have not
different
seen
place in Mexico.
camels, but if there are, I would like to find them and go through there. That sounds fun.
I've seen people that have traveled to La Paz and they look like they're in the Middle East. They look like they're like in Egypt. You might want to look for that. I think it's
We
in
do
La
have
Paz.
sand dunes.
Sand dunes, okay.
Yeah, like out, kind of out where we live. So we don't live right in La Paz. We live outside. But like Mogote Beach, there's sand dunes, which are obviously very popular. People go like, sandboarding and like off-roading in the dunes, but I have not seen camels, but I am going to go search for those.
Please look for those and let me
Yeah.
know if that's the place. It seems like it is La Paz. So
Yeah.
I've seen several people put on turbans and you know,
Oh.
these are just people that are visiting and you know, you're in Mexico instead of the Middle East. Kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's your lifestyle like on a regular basis? What kind of life do you have there?
Yeah. So we have a beautiful life. I mean, super blessed. We were just talking about this last night when we were walking. I mean, everything that we wanted and we had talked about in Canada, we have really manifested. Like we have everything that we have wanted. It's exceptional and beautiful. I mean, originally when we had left, we had like quit our jobs and we're making this lifestyle change and we were going to figure it out. We had really no solid plan of how we were going to support ourselves, but we knew we were doing this. And it worked out. I mean, it worked out.
You just made a decision. That's basically we're gonna do this and we're gonna do this and we're gonna make it work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So it did work out. I mean, it's not as like a lot of our neighbors, like the neighborhood that we live in is actually full of a lot of expats, mostly from Canada and the US, a lot actually from Alberta. There's a lot of Albertans down here, which is funny because that's where we're from. And they're mostly retired. So, I mean, they're living a great life, but we're not retired. So, I mean, we work most of the day, like Monday to Friday, online. My husband also, he's living his best life for sure. He works a little bit less than I do, but he just bought a boat. So now so now he's out like working on the boat and stuff all the time. And I mean, there's just a lot of projects of having an RV like down in Mexico and a lot of maintenance and stuff like that. So he looks after all of that stuff. But besides working, I mean, that's boring. I mean, life is beautiful. We get up, have a leisurely morning, drink coffee, hang out with the dogs, chit chat or whatever. Spend the mornings outside when it's nice, do a lot of reading. I'm an avid gardener, so gardening has been amazing down here, especially compared to Canada. It's kind of spiraled out of control. I have hundreds of plants now. And then, the weekends we go to the beach, we go to the Malecon. La Paz is obviously very well known for the Malecon, like the boardwalk along the ocean. So we go and do that. We like to go out for dinner. And just living in Mexico, the lifestyle that we wanted is so much more affordable and obtainable because obviously the prices and the cost of things is so much less compared to Canada. So I mean, we can go out, we go to the museum regularly. We go out to friends' houses and it's just it's just a wonderful lifestyle.
It sounds like you are truly living your best life. Maybe your husband a little bit more than you because he's got his boat now and now he's forgotten that he has a family and a wife.
Yeah.
Because men tend to do that, right?
Yeah. Well, he was very fixated on projects and then like, hello, remember everything else. But I mean, I'm so happy for him. He has been talking about having a boat for years. So I mean, I'm so excited that he has this boat. I'm not huge on the water, which a lot of people think is weird. They're like, you live in Mexico, and I'm like, yeah. I'm gonna try, obviously, because we have this boat. But I mean, it's a wonderful life. Like everything I want, I have now. He's living his best life. I'm living my best life. And living in Mexico has made that all possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of the affordability, because of so many factors, and it's just so much more laid back, wouldn't you say?
Oh, so much more laid back. Like
Yeah.
it coming from where we came from. So coming from Alberta. So I used to work at an engineering firm in the oil and gas sector, and my husband, Kendall, he worked in the oil and gas sector as an inspector. So both very used to, like, when you arrive on site, like you're already 2 weeks behind. Everything is behind. Everything's over budget. Everything's crazy. Like everything is insane. Like you'll never be on time for anything. Like, and this is actually super funny because my husband is always one of those people. Always. If you're having a meeting at 10 a.m., like he's there at 10:02, right? And that's how I was too. Like you're either 10 minutes early or you're late. But now in Mexico, like we still are always super early, and the Mexicans aren't. Nobody's going to be there at 10:15. It is like that's a suggestion, but it's not actually happening at 10.
It's not happening.
No.
Yeah. It's a suggestion. It's a recommendation.
Yeah.
If you want to be there on time, you'll be the
You're gonna
only
be
one
sitting.
there.
Yeah, I know. I have like stuff
Yeah.
like in our vehicle, like activities, because I know that he's gonna make me be there like at least 15 minutes early, and then whoever we're meeting is gonna be 15 minutes late. So like that's a half hour where I'm just hanging out. But that still hasn't, like, we still haven't gotten quite used to that.
No, it takes a while. I haven't either.
Yeah. But definitely like so laid back. Like, oh, I can't even begin to describe. Like everything is laid back.
Yeah, everything.
You
And
just-
I
you get
always
used to
say
it.
that, excuse me, go ahead and finish. what
No,
you-
no, sorry, go ahead.
Now, I always say, don't you think that, I don't know, if you can put a percentage on the reduction of your stress from North America to here, I would definitely say that my stress level has gone down at least 80% by moving to Mexico.
Yeah.
Maybe more, who knows?
Yeah.
And the cost of living has gone down even more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my stress level, like and both my husband and I were both very stressed out people in Calgary. I mean, I think we attribute that to like our working and our jobs and stuff like that. I mean, he spent half the year, like 6 months out of the year out of town. So I mean, we only saw each other a couple of times a month. It's stressful. The cost of living in Calgary was ridiculous. The cost of our rent and groceries and going out to eat dinner, like crazy. Just everything was super expensive and stressful. Like you literally worked all day. And I mean, working from home, which I do now, it's completely different. But I mean, you had to wake up an hour and a half before you have to be at work because you have a 45-minute commute. Like that was super normal, right? Get to work 8 hours, and then have a 45-minute commute or more home, and then really all you have time for is dinner, and you turn on Netflix and then you go to bed. Like, what kind of life is that? And then the weekends, you're grocery shopping, you're meal prepping, you're going and trying to see family, and maybe throw in an activity if you have it, but like that kind of lifestyle is just not conducive to stress-free. But now
No, it isn't. And you live to work instead of now you work to live. So
exactly.
So you're really taking time to smell the roses, and in your case, all your plants.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And what do you do for work in Mexico? I'm sure you've had a change of career there too.
Yeah, so we definitely had a change of career. So I mean, I have several things on the go, which really my stress now is made by myself because I just keep saying yes to all these projects. So we have a content creation business or agency where we create written content for a number of different clients. So my husband does that as well. He writes content for like 5 online blogs. So that's been great. So I do that as well. And then we also have our own business. It's called RV Spot Drop. And what we do is we connect full-time RVers with long and short-term RV spots. So instead of searching for a campground, we find it for you. And
nice.
yeah, so that's pretty exciting. That just launched in May. And then on top of that, because why not, I also work as a project manager for a digital marketing firm.
Wow.
And tied to that, I'm working as a product manager for a app that they're also developing. So quite a few things.
You're an overachiever like me.
Yeah,
We just
yeah.
can't stop. We can't completely slow down because we're used to having productive lives, right?
Yeah. It's a whole thing. So I mean, it's great. I mean, I really love what I do, and all of my projects. I'm super happy with them. It's not like I'm like, oh, I have to go do this project again. Like every day, it's different. Like it's so different when I lived in Calgary, where every day I would just be like, the alarm clock goes off and it's dark and it's cold, and you just wake up and you're like, I have to go to work today.
I have to go to work instead of I get to go to work because maybe I can get some extras, or maybe we can go on a trip this time. So you're working for other kinds of things, would you say?
Exactly. And I mean, my hours of work are super, I mean, I work full time, but really like I don't start work till 9:30 most days. I take an hour for lunch most days. I work out and take an hour, and go work out, and then I stop work at like 2-3 o'clock. Like, I mean, not all days are like that. Like some days are, but like some days, you have to work later. Some days I have really poor management.
You're running businesses,
Yeah,
so
yeah. Some days my time management is that of a carrot, and I have to work till 6 or 7 or 8 o'clock and whatever. But I mean, Fridays I work till 1 o'clock at the latest.
Nice.
And then I'm out of here. Like the last couple of Fridays, I was working till like 5, and I was like texting. I had like a group chat with my mom and my sister, and I'm like, oh, I'm working. It's 5 o'clock and I'm still working. Like, what is this? And she's like, I'm still at work. And I'm like, oh, like, that sucks, but it's a different lifestyle, and it's so amazing because, like you said, it's not living to work. I'm working to pay for my lifestyle, and it obviously costs way less, and going and doing like way more fun things. And in the middle of the day when I go and have lunch or whatever, I go and I sit on my patio, and it's warm and sunny, and it's amazing. So it's so different.
Oh, and you've done a 360 really.
Yeah.
And good job for doing that. And what do you think it takes really to create this kind of lifestyle? I say it takes a decision, and just you make a decision, because a lot of people are just like, what do you call it? Beating around the bush, like, and they envy us because it's true. They're so jealous. I wish I could have this lifestyle. You can have this lifestyle. Anyone can have this lifestyle, but it takes, you just finally say, I've had enough of the way I'm living right now. And I had enough a few years back.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I am so done with living in the US. I'm so done. Of course, my kids and I have lived in Latin America over 20 years. Argentina was our first country that we went to live abroad. When I came back to the US, I experienced what they call reverse culture shock, because I bet. For years straight in Argentina living, and you get used to that. I should say we acclimatize to that. We get used to that, and coming back to a place that's similar to Alberta, similar to Canada. Utah is very similar.
Yeah.
And a very conservative culture. I just could not adapt again. And so I'm like, I gave it 6 years. I really gave it a good shot, and I said, I can't handle this anymore. I don't want, and if my kids weren't happy. And at that point we had had enough. And I'm like, we're going back to Latin America. That's it. Yeah. And we made a decision, and it was a quick decision. We made it, and we were out of there really soon.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you spent 6 years. I went back to Canada for 2 weeks in September for a wedding, and I was done after 2 weeks. I was like, get me on the plane. Like, I'm getting out of here, because it was like that reverse culture shock of just coming back. And I mean, the weather was cold, but
yeah, of course
it was chilly, and I was like, nope, done with this. But I mean, everything was so expensive. Like, I was just, I lived there my whole life. I grocery shopped every single week in Calgary. I knew, but when you live in Mexico for a year, And then you go back and I was just like sick with how crazy things were and how busy everybody is, busy to do nothing. And, you know, they can't do anything.
Busy to do nothing. I love what you say. It's exactly that way.
They're like, oh, you know, let's plan something for the weekend because I'm busy. Like I have to work during the weekend. Like, no, get me out of here. And there's absolutely no way that I would go back to Canada now. Like just, I think last week we were out with some friends. And you know, they're obviously old. We have a lot of friends that are older, retired, and
we both live in retirement communities.
Yeah, and they were talking about, you know, millennials and how we were talking about like how long you would stay in a job in. And one of the guys was saying, you know, he's had guys work for him that have been there for 25 years. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. Like I can't imagine working for a company for 25 years. He's like, well, how long would you stay somewhere? I probably max like 3 years, and then I want to be like moving on anyways. But he's like, would you ever go back to Canada? And I was like, no, like you would have to drag me kicking and screaming back to like that lifestyle. But like you were asking the decision or what it takes, like it literally just takes that making that decision. And then, okay, you've made that decision and now actively working towards it. But like, you can do it. Anybody can do it.
Anyone can do it.
You just have to, like, it's scary. Like, it's a big jump. But what I say, and this is what I told like my mom just bought, actually, she came down to Mexico in December last year. They were here for 2 weeks. They bought a house. Okay, crazy. But worst case scenario, let's say, and this is how I kind of, you know, rationalized it to my family when my husband and I were like, yeah, we're moving to Mexico. Worst case scenario, we run out of money. Okay. We buy tickets to go home on a credit card or whatever, and we go back to work. Like
you already know what it's like there. You just go back. That truly is the worst case scenario.
Worst case scenario is we sell everything that we have down here. We fly back on, you know, a credit card flight. We move in with whoever and get a cheap rental or a room rental or something. Kendall goes back to work up north. He would have his job back, and we just start over. Like worst case scenario, like nobody's gonna die.
Not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world. Nobody's dead, and whatever.
Nobody's dead yet.
Like that's it. That's the worst case.
That's
go
true.
Back.
Yeah.
And
it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. But you just have to do it. Like it's so scary, but I literally, and I know people will just say like, oh, you guys are super lucky. Like, no, we worked really hard and things worked like out in our favor, and what maybe that's how it seems, but I mean, like we worked really hard and we made this decision and we actively worked towards it, and you know, like just
you made it happen.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do it. And you only regret the chances that you don't take.
Exactly. Yeah.
Why live with regrets? I'm just such an advocate for that.
Yeah.
And your social life, how has that changed?
So it has. So again, my husband worked out of town, so I mean, he was never home, so he didn't have much of a social life when we were in Canada. And I mean, I think he's fine with that. He's more of an introvert. But I mean, being down here and with the COVID situation, it has been tough, definitely to make friends, just because, you know, the things that we would be doing, like you can't go out to, there's no bars open, like a lot of activities like festivals and stuff like that where you'd be meeting people. Those
festivals, right now. Miss those.
But I mean, we have a great network of other expats in the neighborhood. I mean, most of them are older, but I still love hanging out with them. They're great. Definitely like meeting people online has been amazing. And meeting younger people in the neighborhood has been a lot true online, because that's obviously where we are. Actually, we have a couple date tomorrow with a couple that we met online, but I mean, I don't know if that's like kind of weird, but for my generation or for like me, I'm like, yeah, we just met these people online and we're gonna go hang out with them. This is fine. Like this is fine. But I mean, yeah, I mean, I still hang out or still, you know, regularly like FaceTime with my girlfriends and my family from back home and just meeting other people in the neighborhood. It's a slow process. I mean, I'm kind of sad that we haven't met more like locals, but you know, and there's a language barrier and you know, it's a slow process, but it's
Well,
good.
you've only been there a year, think about it. So a little more than a year now at this point. So,
Yeah.
and you also came during COVID. So you moved there during the pandemic. People are still mostly keeping to themselves.
Exactly.
But I noticed like here in Mexico, there are a lot more people walking in the streets and a lot more people to meet. And so, and they make time for you too, because their lives aren't as so congested as up in North America, wouldn't you say? Yeah.
I think people are a lot more friendly too. Like when we pass people on the beach or walking, like people are super friendly to stop and chat and like, oh, stop by and come have a drink. Like everybody's just always inviting you over. And I'm like, yeah, stop by like whenever, like just you take advantage of those social situations because people are so friendly and so welcoming. And I mean, talking to random people at restaurants isn't weird. Like, especially being like a gringo couple, like when we go out to restaurants and stuff like that, like if there's anybody else that's also like an expat, like we're talking. Like at Walmart, if I see anybody that's like an expat, like I want to talk just because I want to speak English and I want to talk to you and make friends, I guess.
I've noticed in this area, for example, I think it's the only place in the world where we've had this experience where we're in a restaurant. I'm there with maybe a girlfriend having a lunch, and all of a sudden that person knows the next person, or they don't know them, but then all of a sudden they introduce themselves, and then that table becomes 4. I mean, have you had experienced things like that? I mean, this area is like, this is unbelievable. I mean, this is the way people used to live. I think so. I don't know. It's like going back to the 50s or 60s where people actually, you know, before cell phones and of course we're going to still use our cell phones, but when actually people interacted with each other, and that's so refreshing for people, you know, to live like that. For people like us, that we've never lived like that.
Yeah, like just talking to other patrons at the store, at the restaurant, and then all of a sudden, you know, you join tables and it's like normal.
It is normal here.
It's normal here, but I mean, like back home, like I would never do that, and like kind of like even talking to people in line, like you don't really do that. I mean, like where Kendall's from in Prince Edward Island, like that happens all the time. Like,
okay.
The Maritimes are super, super friendly, but you come to Alberta and you're just like, oh, I haven't talked to anybody in days because you don't talk to strangers. But here it's like kind of it's like the East Coast of Canada, like we just talk to everybody.
It's just normal, for here. Yeah,
exactly.
And is there anything you'd like to include that maybe we haven't talked about?
I mean, I would just say like Mexico is so amazing. Like, don't come to Mexico and just surround yourself with people that are like you. And don't try, like one thing that really grinds my gears is, especially because I live in an expat community, like I see this all the time, but people come down and they are on high alert and they want to kind of like make Mexico like the US. And I'm like, buddy, like you're in Mexico, you're here for a reason. Like this isn't the US. Please don't try and ruin.
Thank you for saying that. And I am the biggest critic, I'm the most critical of Americans out there. Being an American myself, you really notice that. And why do you move to another country to just hang out with people that are like you?
Well, and to just try and enforce all these rules, like
enforce and be a Karen, for example.
Yeah, be a Karen. Like we say that Mexico is wild freedom. There are rules, they're loose, they're more like suggestions and guidelines, but you don't have to follow them. Nobody's gonna care if you have chickens running around your yard, if your dog isn't on a leash, like if you're like there's things that you can just do. I mean, who are you gonna call? The police aren't going to come deal with your neighbor with the chickens or the dogs. Like, it's not going to happen. So just accept it, embrace it. It's loud. I mean, when we first got to Mexico, I was beside myself and I was like, oh my God, is every day going to be like this? Like, it's so loud. There was dogs barking, music playing, cars driving by. It was constant. And when I first got here, like, I was just like, I mean, we had just come from the country. We had spent 3 months in like the middle of nowhere. So, I mean, it was
So you went from complete silence to all of this. Should we just call it life? It's life that's happening. But it is noisy. It is a noisy country. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah. And it's all night. Like, there's no, like, parties go all night, like, whatever, but you just get used to it. But like, you can't change it. You can't
change it.
Force the locals to abide by your rules that you're bringing down from wherever you're coming from. Like, you can't. Just accept it, embrace it. The rules are messy. They're just, it's fine. Just go with it. It's really how I would say. Like,
I mean, here's an example. I'm giving a class, and here I'm giving a live class online. I'm sure I don't know if you're working online, but you very well know this scenario if you've done this. And then here comes the tamale guy. I'm just about to finish a class, and here he comes, and it comes with the music, and luckily I'm teaching a Mexican American who's living in the US. And I'm like, here comes the tamale guy, and then in the afternoon, here comes the ice cream man with his music, and he just parks because they know we always buy from them, so they'll just park. And I had to tell them, can you turn off your music? I'm giving a class. You arrived just a little bit earlier, and they're very nice about doing that. But it's just a reality. And then we have the goats. We have this mini farm in front of us, and we have this mama goat and the baby goat that are going around. They're not that noisy, but there are some noisy goats, and there's dogs, and it's just embrace it. It's part of life. Yeah,
it's just how it is. I mean, one of the other things that I would say is that's definitely different than Canada and the US is like dogs or cats at restaurants. The other last weekend we went to a restaurant, like a fairly like nice restaurant, and we're eating our meal, we're sitting out on the patio, and there's a stray dog. And well, I mean, this dog had a collar, but it's obviously just like somebody's.
It's probably the restaurant dog.
Well, I don't know, but the dog comes
whatever.
to the door, and he's obviously done this before, so he comes up to the door, and they're like, no, you can't go in the restaurant, but like, he comes around to all the tables, and he like sits under the tables that he knows are weak, like us, because we're going to give food and stuff. But like in Canada, that would never happen. There would never be a stray dog just walking around begging.
No.
But it happens all the time here, and there's cats in restaurants, and there's dogs, and like maybe you think it's weird. Okay, I'm a dog person, so I'm excited because there's a dog here, but that's something that you're not going to be able to change. There's no organization in Mexico who's going to stop stray dogs and other like owners having their dogs in restaurants. Like, it's not going to happen. So just accept it. Like, if you have a guide dog or you have a dog that you bring with you, like, there's going to be other dogs there. Like, I can bring my dogs to the restaurant as pets. Like, nobody's going to say anything. So that's one thing that I've actually seen on like Facebook forums and Facebook like groups is like people getting like real spicy about like dogs in restaurants. And I'm like, man, like, you're not going to change that. That's just.
It's true. It's just part of daily life here. Yeah.
Just part of it. Yeah.
People love their animals, and it's a real kid-friendly culture too. So it's pretty much it's just a tolerant culture everywhere you go for the most part. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. There's kids. We drive around at like nighttime, and we're like little babies are out, and I'm like, what's going on here? But like, people just bring their kids, and they bring their dogs, and they're welcome everywhere. Restaurants, and they go out to the beach and whatever. Like, it's just the way it is, and you can't change that. And
well, it's a family culture, really. If anything, I mean, every place is different throughout Mexico, but the one prevailing culture is family.
Yeah, for sure.
Strong culture of family here, which is definitely, in my not so humble opinion, it's a good thing,
Yeah. I think it's a nice environment to be around. I mean, people are just so welcoming, and I mean, yeah, I mean, I love everything about it. I love it so much down here. Obviously, like other people do, like my mom bought a house after 1 week. So I mean, it's obviously something special, but it's just an amazing place to live. And I'm so happy to be here.
You can tell, it shows,
Yeah.
it shows.
Yeah.
We're both very happy to be here.
Yeah.
Would you like to be contacted? If so, how can people contact you?
Yeah, so I love to talk about Mexico. I love to talk about how to get down here and how other people can also be living their blessed and dream lives, because it is possible. So if anybody wants to chat, they can always shoot me an email. My website is dashboarddrifters.com, and my contact information is on there, but it's just dashboarddrifters@gmail.com. We do have social media. I'm not super active on it, but followers are followers. So, I mean, you can find us on social media, on Instagram at the same, at Dashboard Drifters.
Dashboard Drifters. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I love talking to people about their Mexico journey. And I mean, we have lots of guides on like how to get your residency, how to fill out the forms that are obviously in Spanish because it's a Spanish speaking country. So that's a fun adventure that we like to help people with. But yeah, love to chat with other people about how they're going to get down here too.
Yeah, because you want to just spread the joy just like I do. I mean,
yeah,
I go back, to North America, and I think you don't have to live this way, you can have a much better life. And I just want to reach out to those people and just say, come on down,
Yeah.
Or maybe it's not Mexico, but live a different kind of life, maybe abroad. Or I always say, like, come down full-time, part-time, or sometime, but just do it, just do it.
Yeah. I think people need to realize, like, I mean, when I first came down to Mexico, I stayed at the resort. I didn't leave the resort. I was very uncomfortable. Like it's a culture shock when you're on the bus from the Cancun airport to whatever resort you're going to. Like you see things that it's shocking, but it's not dangerous. It's just it's a beautiful life. Like people live down here every day. Like people raise their families. It's a beautiful place, and people I think need to come down and experience it. Even if you just go to the resort, go to the resort and then move up and go to maybe go to a resort that has like street access and wander onto the street and see what it's about, and then maybe stay in an Airbnb. Just start slow. Like you don't have to move here and get a condo, buy a house like tomorrow. Like just come down and experience it.
That's right. Just come down and see what you're missing.
Yeah, exactly.
I say that because you are missing things if you don't get down here. You got to get out of the rat race sometimes. Just on a side note here, those of you who are listening, don't forget to subscribe to the channel as we feature a lot of interesting perspectives in these podcast interviews in both English and Spanish. We also give Spanish because I'm fluent in Spanish, so I can give those interviews. Kind of fun to get others' perspectives out there. Jennifer, thanks so much for being my guest today. I hope to keep in touch with you, and you're welcome to come stay in our area, and we have an extra room in our house in Chapala, in the Lake Chapala area. So
perfect. Yeah, thank you so much for having me
here today. I so appreciate you coming, and we had to wait a little bit to get this interview, but I'm so grateful that you came on today, and I wish you the best. We're going to be in touch.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.